Cue that beat.
This is what happens. You guys just hear something Eagles, and then it's like a dog. He sees a squirrel.
I would say 75% of all NFL quarterbacks can be dialed down to different flavors of Kirk Cousins. They're all just Kirk Cousins. All of them.
So there's conditions. No, I absolutely understand do not draft list. If someone's on my do not draft list, I am not drafting him.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Mind the Gap podcast. It is time for mock draft number 3. I almost clapped into my mic right there, but that would have been horrifying for all of you. Something I realized after last show is, guys, in all the shows that we have done with video, I had never shown my hair until last episode. It was an accidental hair reveal. I just wore a hat on every single show, and it was weird. I didn't realize it. I looked back at every single one, and I thought that it was strange.
That is kind of weird because you don't wear hats that often.
No, I don't, and that's why it was strange. It was just like a coincidental every Monday night kind of thing. But it's weird. That said, football. We're going to do the same mock draft format we did last time, but with each of us taking a third of the picks, and then we will be able to call each other and see if you're willing to trade back, trade forward, etc. And we're going to take what we think the team will do, but if we can't decide on what we think the team will do, like we're saying the team can't decide between Carter and Hunter, we'll go with our gut and say this is what I would do in their shoes. That way we are giving an actual prediction, that is like, with the icing on the cake of that prediction is our own analysis and our own opinions, because you're here to hear our opinions, I hope. Let's get to it. I don't remember who has... Tyler, I think you have 101,
I have
right?
the first pick, yes.
Excellent.
We'll go ahead and make this really quick. Tennessee Titans will select with the first overall pick, Cam Ward, quarterback, Miami. He is a guy who, through this whole process, has grown on me. He was always QB1 for me, but initially he was sitting at kind of the high 20s in terms of where I had him as an overall big board prospect. The more you watch, the more I fell in love with him. He has the potential to be an actual franchise-type quarterback. Love what the Titans are doing, building around him. At this point, getting some more offensive linemen. Already have Calvin Ridley in place in terms of a solid weapon to build around, and I think he could take them to the next level.
Yeah, I think Cam Ward he's a really good player. I don't think the question is where would he rank among past quarterback classes, right? Because I have no issue with him in this class. I think he's the clear QB1. I like his attitude. I like his abilities. I like his skill set. I like his traits. And I like the fact that he's worked his way up from Incarnate Word. That's awesome. He's got a great story, great personality. He's the kind of guy you want to be able to take it 101. The question we keep coming back to is where would he go like last year's class with Caleb, Jaden, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, that very talented rookie class with Drake May as well. Where would he be going? But I think you got to work with what you got, and the Titans get Cam Ward at 101.
Personally, I'm still not sold on keeping the pick there solely for the fact that the QB class is still better next year, and you could trade back and probably get a stockpile of picks for the number one. But it's the safest pick, I would say. But I'm on the clock here, and we've talked about how important these next few picks are in the sense that it is a ripple effect of the draft. One pick is off, it throws off the next pick and the next and the next. And I only see two scenarios here. 1 through 4 in this order goes Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, or Cam Ward, Abdul Carter, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter. Now, which of those is really still up for interpretation? Because Myles Garrett is apparently claiming that he knows what the Browns plan to do at quarterback. I don't think it's Kenny Pickett or Deshaun Watson still, but that leaves so much speculation because I don't think Shedeur Sanders is the pick here. I really don't. Does that mean it's Aaron Rodgers? Does that mean it's Kirk Cousins and Kirk Cousins is going to waive the no trade clause? I'm really interested in how this is going to play out on draft night because I think they pick Abdul Carter still and leave Shedeur to fall to the Giants because personally, I would go out and get a veteran quarterback. It's probably not Aaron Rodgers, but I would not mind a Kirk Cousins to Jerry Jeudy connection.
So your final thing is you take Abdul Carter?
I'm taking Abdul Carter to the Cleveland Browns to begin the semi-rebuild.
So why take Carter over trading back is my question here.
I would absolutely trade back if someone offered, but no one did.
Well, who would trade up? That's the other question.
I was going to say that's what I just don't think there's anyone who's going to trade up,
Especially for how much it's going to cost.
Yeah. Not for sure. And the
only possibility is the Giants, if they just want to be really sure that the Browns aren't taking Shador, because there's a ton of smoke right now that the Browns want to take Sanders, the quarterback out of Colorado.
Yeah.
And so, you never know if that's a smoke scene to try to trade back to pick up an extra second, third round pick or something for the pick swap. But
or maybe even the Jets.
The Jets, the Saints have been picking up they've been picking up some steam in terms of a QB needy team that might trade up. But just because of the quality of player that I think the NFL thinks Sanders is, and we agreed with being not one of those top tier guys, I don't think there's going to be a team who is just so psyched to take him. They're going to trade up and trade away a ton of assets to bring him in.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too, is I'm thinking I have 2 points. The first is I don't know who would trade up for him. I know the teams that are likely to, and that'd be the Saints, the Jets, and that's about it basically. Maybe the Raiders is 6, but they have Pete Carroll now, and I have a whole spiel coming on what Pete Carroll does in draft classes. And maybe you could see the Giants trade up if they want to just make sure they get their guy, but that's not going to happen because this scenario could happen for them. They just signed Jameis Winston, who is, by all definition, a bridge quarterback. He is the bridgiest quarterback of bridge quarterbacks ever. So you don't need to draft a QB in this class, especially with the next year's class coming up quickly. I think the Browns are going to take Shador, which is why I disagree with this pick, Ryan, is I think because of the nature of this exercise, we're doing what we think the teams would do. And I think that it's fairly clear that they either trade back or take Shador. And by taking neither of those, I just plain disagree.
I know for a definitive fact that Kirk Cousins wants out because of Penix now. But I see what you're saying. But I think Carter is the safe pick to pair with Garrett. And if I'm the GM, I'm like, okay, he'll have at least 4 years to play with Myles Garrett. That's the goal here.
Barry and Stefanski are like coaching and GMing for their jobs right now. They can't play it safe. They are trying to take. If you take a quarterback, you have the lifespan of that quarterback to be.
You're taking the number one player in the class.
Yeah,
you're fine.
No, you're not, because a D end is not going to change the fact that if you win games. A quarterback might. I get what you're saying. Abdul Carter.
You're telling me Kenny Pickett can't win games?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I'm telling you, Kenny Pickett can't win games. At the very least, with Sanders, Sanders might be worse than Kenny Pickett, but that won't matter because there's the hope and the promise of a young first-round quarterback. That keeps GMs in their seat. That's what that does. Carter.
If they selected Sanders, it'd be setting them back years.
That's okay. I agree. I don't think that's the right move. I think they should trade back. That said, I think they're going to take Sanders because their jobs depend on it and their livelihoods depend on it.
Well, if we ever do a mock draft on what they should do, then this is what they should do.
This is what they should do. That's why I'm saying I disagree with the selection.
If we ever do a mock draft of what they will do, that could be a possibility. This is what they should do, not what they will do.
I think we might have just messed up the exercise.
I think so too. This is what they were predicting, Ryan. That's the whole point. And you're predicting that they'll do something different than what you just predicted them to do?
I'm predicting that they go Abdul Carter because it is the safe pick.
On draft night, April whatever, what do the Browns do with this selection? You are predicting it.
Abdul Carter, unless someone offers to trade up, but I can't trade back with my own teams.
Dude. All right.
Well, now, Aaron, I think your pick's pretty...
No, my pick is impossible now.
I just think they take Shador probably, yeah?
I mean, maybe. So I wanted to have the Saints discussion at 9, but they don't have the money to pay a rookie quarterback. All right, so you're the Giants at 3, and the Giants I wrote down for their team needs. They have a lot of needs, but it's actually not that bad of a roster when you dive deep into it. They need tackles. Their linebacker core sucks. Could use corner depth, but I like Drew Phillips, and I like some of the young guys. I think Tyler Nubin's on this team as well. They have Sexy Dexy on the interior, Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns. Like, this team has names. They have players. I don't want to say they're a quarterback away, but they are more on the up and up than I think people give them credit for, especially with a guy like Malik Neighbors leading your receiving core. So my options here before Ryan's pick is I expected Shedeur to go here, right? I expected Shedeur to go number 2. So my real question was between Hunter and Carter. Carter, he gives you the best player in the class. Hunter, he gives you a weapon that you need. You need a receiver, you need a corner, and you're getting the 1B of this class. So Hunter was the likely selection there.
Hunter, Slayton, and Neighbors?
Slayton's irrelevant. He's just a guy.
That's a wide receiver 3.
He should not have been.
He's a good player. He's a good player.
He's a role guy. He knows his place in the offense.
He's a good role player. That's the perfect way to put it.
Fine. He's a George Niang. So my question was like Hunter, and I think that's where I was leaning. And then Ryan just let Shedeur fall to me.
Dude, you act like it was some astronomical idea. Absolute Carter to the Browns was always a thing.
There was no thought in my mind that the Browns weren't going to take a quarterback, dude. They're in purgatory. The GM and the coach are going to lose their jobs.
Aaron Rodgers is still available. Kirk Cousins wants out.
Kirk Cousins is getting out next season. The Falcons don't have to let him out until next season. They're going to keep him
but they probably will.
No, they don't. If the cap hits next season, they have a whole season of money that they've already guaranteed him, already given him. He's not leaving the Falcons for another calendar year.
Yeah, so if they've already paid him, another team will give up prime draft capital.
Oh my gosh. The Browns should have taken Shedeur. I stand by it. So I am the Giants, and I'm stunned. I have Jameis now. He's my starting quarterback for this season. I could give him some competition, draft Shedeur, and Shedeur becomes my future. He either starts over Jameis or sits behind Jameis for a year. Are
you so mad that you want to vote on this and let Tyler weigh in?
I'm not mad. It's your decision. It's your pick. We're not doing this. This isn't a consensus thing. I just wholeheartedly disagree with you.
I will leave it up to Tyler to break the tie.
Again, I'm not trying to reverse it. I just think
pick here because it's the safe pick for them.
I'm not trying to reverse it. I vote against myself here. The pick is stuck. It's in the PFF mock draft simulators that we're using right now. It's stuck. It's locked. I just disagree with your thinking and your decision.
So all that said, the Giants are taking.
Yeah, we're going to take Shedeur Sanders.
Thank you.
He has, I think, by getting Jameis, they add flexibility, and they add a question of do you take him or Hunter, but you can't pass. I don't. I think this is the wrong selection, but I think it's the selection they make. I think you go Hunter here and take a better quarterback later with Jameis for a season, but I think the Giants take Shedeur because you have the possibility of sitting him behind Jameis. I don't. It's weird.
I was gonna say, would I take Shedeur at 2 or 3? No, but I think the teams are going to need quarterbacks, and they're going to convince themselves because it's just tough. Even if, let's say, the Browns don't take him, and then next year they end up with the 8th pick, which is not a wild improvement by a win-loss record standard.
Right.
But you know what it gets you out of? Taking a quarterback, probably. And so, or you then have to dedicate more resources to trading up. We know the whole spiel. Or
you get a quarterback like Jackson Dart, which is not the guy you want to be running your franchise with.
Right, you get QB4 in the given draft instead of QB1.
Which, mind you, I don't want to disparage entirely on QB4s. Bo Nix has worked out gorgeous so far after one season. So that strategy has panned out in the past.
Well, we can, I think there's some varying opinions.
He's a starting quarterback. He's a starting quarterback in the league, and Sean Payton loves him.
He's a starting quarterback. Yes,
he's a starting quarterback. I like him. I think he's going to improve next season too. I'm excited.
He needs some weapons.
Yeah, that I agree with.
That is true. Yeah.
We'll get to that.
I was going to say, I'm sure first round is a great opportunity for them to get weapons in many different spots. So now we're with the New England Patriots. That's my pick. This has worked out beautifully for them.
Oh my gosh,
I
yeah.
don't think that it could have worked out better. If Travis Hunter is available at pick 4, you just smash, say, you run up the card, you sprint it there as fast as possible. So I'm going to take Travis Hunter, cornerback, wide receiver out of Colorado. And for the Patriots, I think he plays wide receiver. They need weapons in the worst way. We talked about in our wide receiver rankings episode how all of us think that he could be a wide receiver type play or wide receiver 1 type player in the league if he plays that full time. So explosive. Him and Drake May. Drake May's best trait coming out was his deep ball accuracy and how good he is with the deep ball. You know what Travis Hunter's best trait is? The way he can track the ball and go up and win it in the air. There's no one better in the class at doing that. I love that pairing. And then if you do want to put him at corner a little bit, sure, like try it out. Do whatever you can figure out there. But I think he's going to be a great receiver if he goes to New England.
My thoughts, if New England takes Hunter, I agree that he should be a receiver that moonlights as corner, not a corner that moonlights as a receiver. He should lead this offensive charge with May and whoever else they can bring in. And in the red zone, pair up alongside Christian Gonzalez to have a genuine lockdown corner room in maybe 20 yards and under, red zone and under, or on 2-minute drives, etc. But like have him ready to play both, but utilize him on offense so that he has fresh legs and can come in and be that closer on defense. He can be a corner 2 closer, which have we ever seen that before? I don't know, but it'd be awesome. It'd be so cool if he has his own Mariano Rivera, like freaking Edwin Diaz, Timmy Trumpet sound effect when he comes in the fourth quarter. That'd be awesome.
Because honestly, that's his best trait as a corner is just the zone instincts and the playmaking. And so if you can get him in that
hawk.
20, right, if you can get him in that red zone area or 25 yards and in wherever you want to mark that yard line and just say, hey, you don't have to worry about deep routes, anything. Just play underneath and jump routes and be an athlete. Play in between routes and make plays that really no one else can make. That's a great role for him. And that's the way I think he could moonlight as a corner. It's harder to do that, but like you said, there's ways you can tweak it to have situations for him.
Agreed. I think it's a perfect pick.
Dude, him and Gonzalez will be a
it's
duo
nasty.
for years. All right, well, I got the Jaguars, and I'm looking here to see what they did in free agency. Not a whole lot, guys. They bolstered the offensive line a little bit, and they re-signed some players, but Jordan Lewis, 3-year, $30 million deal, and Eric Murray. So the secondary is all right. I'll leave it. I'm not going to stretch on Will Johnson here.
Okay, I was wondering who you were referring to when you talk about secondary in the first 5 picks.
I think I'm going to go with the same pick we actually made in our last mock draft, Mason Graham. We always talked about how that Jaguars defensive line needs some help. And Mason Graham's one of the premier run defenders in this class. It doesn't get much better than this. So helping them there in the interior would be stupendous.
And especially they have rumors that they're trying to trade Travon Walker. So,
I've seen that. Yeah, it's a weird place for them to be.
I don't know what they would get.
And I don't really know why they would trade him.
I think it's
they
just
got a 5-year option.
And it's to avoid the extension, right? Because your options are either let him walk and get nothing, trade him and get something, or give him the extension and maybe waste money. So it seems like they're trying to get ahead of that extension, which is, funnily enough, what the Mavericks were trying to do with Luka Doncic. Very different situations, but the same philosophy behind it.
Yeah, and I guess maybe they just don't want to load up their edges because they have Josh Hines Allen that's playing pretty well and has been for a couple of years now. But I don't know. I get when you take someone with the number 1 pick and he's not been, all pro level, but he's been I would say, very good player. I guess I don't know why you would get rid of that. Like I would just pay that, I think.
Did those rumors start to circulate after Balky got fired?
This is pretty recent.
Okay. Because I'm wondering what the new GM thinks of this roster. And I heard a good point about the new GM was hired, mid-January?
Give or take, yeah.
Give or take. So he hasn't had time to build a Jacksonville draft board. He's still going to be using the board that Balky had set up and he's not going to go to his scouts and his assistants and be like, hey, delete everything. We're starting from fresh now that this is a new regime. His job starts the day after the draft, basically. I'm curious to see what he does in this class and then what he does in next year and how it differs based on we have a brand new GM. We've never seen him before. He's 36? He's young. So I'm curious to see what he does and if he just goes safe in this class and tries to make swings in the next one. But
I don't know, because he was a personnel guy for the Rams, wasn't he?
yeah,
Gladstone. So I wonder, I mean, he had to have done draft work. Like, I feel like he just brings that over, yeah?
no, he brings his own over. But like I'm saying, he had done Rams draft prospects, right? So I'm saying that like there's a whole. He can't just throw out everything that was done before him at Jacksonville as soon as he comes in. He has to use what Balky had already kind of set up, some of the boards, some of the player preps, some of the scouting reports, because there was just too much to throw out, and it's too short a time for him to fully do his own work. I'm up on the clock with the Raiders. So the Raiders need a quarterback, right? Desperately. The only one left here that's first round viable is Jackson Dart, and even hit that word viable is in quotations. Pete Carroll is the new head coach. John Spytek, the new GM of the Vegas Raiders. Tom Brady is heavily involved. They have Geno Smith now. They spent a third rounder on him. So I'm not taking a quarterback this class. Also, Pete Carroll does not take quarterbacks until his team is secured. I went back and looked at Seattle draft classes when he got hired in 2010, right? He got hired in January 2010. Every draft class after that was one of Pete Carroll's. 2010, he took Russell Okung and Earl Thomas at 6 and 14. Already, you're seeing a trend, right? You have a tackle going 6 overall in the first year of Pete Carroll's tenure. I don't even need to get into the rest of them because that just tells you exactly what I'm doing. I'm just going to take Will Campbell. I think he's one of the best players left in this board. I think he is my best tackle available. I'm not worried about his arms. I'm not worried about anything like that. And I think that just matches Carroll's MO. It matches what Spytek is wanting to do because he's new. He wants to play it safe for this first year and build ready for a quarterback later when Geno is on the decline. But I think Campbell's the right pick. And you need help at tackle at all times.
I don't know if I agree with this because from what I've seen, Raiders fans are confident in DJ Glaze to be the starter this year, and Thayer Munford was actually their swing tackle who can play left and right tackle. So, yes, I always agree you can have more tackles, but Colton Miller is not going to, or Will Campbell's not going to replace Colton Miller. Will Campbell played left tackle, so Will Campbell would be switching positions, but why not take Genty here?
It's way too high for a running back, and you're not going to do that. I don't think Carroll takes a running back here.
They lost Madison.
They brought in Raheem Mostert, and they still have Sincere McCormick,
who is a 7th rounder or UDFA out of UTSA.
But not taking Genty here doesn't mean they can't take a running back, though.
Right. This is also the best running back class maybe ever, right? I think McShay said that on a recent podcast. This is a fantastic back class. I'm not going to spend I'm not going to take a running back at 6 when I could get Omarion Hampton in the second round. Or I could get a guy like Cam Scatabo in the third. I'm not going to do that. Also, McCormick,
I will say,
you can't just hold up. That ticks me off. You can't just bring up where a guy went to college and his draft position and use that against him. That doesn't matter. He's an NFL player.
He's not been productive. It was my point there. They still don't have a productive running back on the roster.
With what
below
offensive
the
line?
age of 32 and can perform.
With what offensive line?
Again, I told you, they are confident in DJ Glaze. Thayer Munford is the swing. So I don't know when you think you're going to start Will Campbell because I don't think he'll be the day one starter.
I am drafting him to be the day one starter over DJ Glaze or Colton Miller.
Over Colton Miller?
One of the two of them. That's not for me to decide. I'm taking the best player available, which is the tackle. They need tackle.
Aaron, you're smoking crack. Colton Miller is a top 8 tackle in the league.
How do you know Will Campbell isn't? I know that's like it's. Let that play out in camp.
The uncertainty. You already have to switch positions because Colton Miller has the left side.
So who would you have taken here besides Genty? I'm not taking Genty. That's crazy.
Probably Will Johnson.
They need DB help, so that's not
the entire defense needs help beyond maybe the D line because you got Tyree Wilson, you got Kuntz who just resigned for $12 million, you got Max Crosby who just got the extension, and Wilkins still, and Adam Butler, who is I think one of the highest D tackles in pressure rate and win percentage. So I would highly, 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 highly advise you to change this pick.
Oh, it's locked.
I was going to say, dang it, because I put it in my.
Yeah, I can't announce it and say what I'm
Okay.
doing and then change it later. No, I had already gone up, and then if you want to give me a bad grade, go ahead. But I'm taking one of my favorite players in this class, a guy who we had. Where did we have him on our big board? Top 7, and I'm taking the best tackle available because
We got him at 8.
Okay, great, we had him at 8. Oh no, he doesn't start a season. And then when we have an injury, when we have a free agent, he hops in my tackle, and there is no drop off, or maybe it's even more productive with a better tackle.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I agree with the draft history because correct me if I'm wrong, but he also drafted Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas
Carroll, yeah,
while he was still in Seattle.
that was
so
late.
He
The
loves
point
his
of-
tackles.
right. And the point of my research was to show what he does when he starts a program, which is to take a tackle first at 106, which he did last time. He also took Thomas. He took Thomas at 114. I don't like Starks enough to take a safety here, but it's at least a conversation.
Worst comes to worst, Campbell can kick down to guard too. Alex Kappa currently is the right guard probably for Las Vegas.
Yeah, and he was
Didn't
meant
play.
to be a backup. So I think theoretically, Tyler, that's actually a great idea.
So, or kick glazed out, like whichever you would want to move out of the right tackle spot to kick down. I think you could do that. And as much as like I am,
Just put your best 5 out there.
I was
that's
going to
the
say, as much as I'm not crunching Las Vegas Raiders offensive line tape, again, this seems to be a theme across the past 2 episodes of stuff I'm not doing. But
My bad. It's not like you work a full-time job or anything.
yeah, but I'm never really going to completely fault you for taking O lineman. It's just good to have. Is it maybe the ideal based on the need? No, but I see what you're saying of get the best offensive lineman, put your best 5 out there, and try and win with Geno and what you got right now.
I'm also not as high as Will Johnson as you guys are. So the next guys on our board, Genty is 3, Johnson 5, Tyler Warren 6, Shamar Stewart 7. I'm not taking an edge rusher if I'm Vegas. It's not the highest need. You just paid Max Crosby, and you still have guys like Tyree Wilson who you want to see what you can get out of. Will Campbell is right there at 8. I'm not taking Warren. We have 2 tight ends, both of whom are starting quality, and one of them might be the best tight end in the league. I'm not taking, and so Johnson's the only one I take, and I'm just not that high on him. And I like some of the other corners I can get later in the first round or in the second. And so if I'm in the Raiders, okay, cool. I'll take a corner in the second round. That might be the right pick. I'm not taking one here. So this is my best player available at a position of need.
All right, so now we got the New York Jets up. That is my team. Before I actually make the pick, because this is what we think the teams will do, I wanted to ask how real you think the dart to the Jets rumors are. Because
Lukewarm.
because I don't actually believe them, but if you guys are really sold on them, then that could be the pick if we think that's what they're going to do.
The Jets are going to Jets. I don't know what that means, but it's true.
Call me crazy, but I don't think Aaron Glenn looks at Jackson Dart in the eyes and is like,
Oh,
you know
no.
what? You're going to be my starting quarterback.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point.
How
Not
much
an Aaron Glenn guy.
How much decision making do you think Glenn has? How much weight do you think he has with ownership being as strange as it is in New York?
It's a good question. And did he got hired before the GM? I'm assuming like he brought in his GM that he has.
I think so, because it was
I don't
pretty
know for
immediate.
sure. But I'll just say that's usually how it goes: is you hire the coach and then he brings in a GM that he knows pretty well and has done personnel with before. So if you guys can look that up to make sure I'm right, but you got to think they're pretty lockstep in terms of what they want. Again, personally, I just don't think there's a lot to this. I don't think Dart is worthy of the 7th pick. We talked about it last show. And I don't think Aaron Glenn is in a hurry to reach for a quarterback. They signed Justin Fields for 2 years, $40 million. Whatever you think of Justin Fields, he's proven at least that he can be a starting quarterback of a team that's average when he was in Pittsburgh and win a couple games, even though it's not really because of him. You can have something there and have a decent player. So right now I'm looking at the Jets and their need outside of quarterback. They could use a wide receiver too. Now that Devontae Adams is gone, they could use a tackle. Both their tackles are gone that they started the year with Tyron Smith and Moses. I'm forgetting his last name. Excuse me. And then they kick out Olu, but they still have a tackle spot. So I was going to go with the best tackle available here with the Jets. And so right now, since Campbell is gone, that's Armand Membu, tackle out of Missouri. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take Membu because as much as I like Tet, I think they're in the same tier, Membu and Tet McMillan, the wide receiver out of Arizona. And I would rather build through the line of scrimmage, especially if I'm going to have Justin Fields, a guy that's a little bit skittish in the pocket, go ahead
little
and take,
bit.
Yeah. I was trying to be generous, but yeah.
This isn't the time to be generous. It's time to do a mock draft. Also, Glenn was hired 4 days earlier than Darren Maugi. Also, speaking of pronunciations, I heard Todd McShay call Membo.
Oh, geez. Maybe.
Maybe.
He might be right. He might be right. But I really want to build through the line of scrimmage. If I have two young tackles, Olu was below average relative to the NFL in terms of his grading last year, but you're a rookie tackle. And so that's about where you want to be. That's fine. Get Membu, build through that. And then if you do end up wanting to take a quarterback either next year or the year after with some better quarterback classes, at least how we project, you're setting up well to not have them in a horrible situation.
Agreed. I also think I heard. This is my moment to call Ryan out for a second. You guys are giving me crap for not being over Keon Coleman, right? For not saying he's a bust. And there's a bunch of guys. I personally am not comfortable giving a full reaction or a full grade to a class for 3 years. 3 seasons. I want to see 3 seasons out of them to decide if they're a bust or they made the league. Saying that Keon Coleman and a guy like Olu are busts because they had below average or, in Coleman's case, pretty bad seasons is crazy. Give them time. Everybody moving from home, being homesick. This is like they're kids, they're people. I think people forget that.
Been storing that one up, huh?
Yeah. I'm not going to deny that. All right, the Panthers.
Storing that one up. It is a good point, though, because honestly, I thought about this. Somebody mentioned it with the Derek Stingley Jr. extension. Is that after the first year, you would have been why would the Texans take Stingley over Sauce? Oh my gosh, that's a horrible pick. What do you do? And now Stingley is the better corner of the two. So anyway,
and Sauce might just be floundering. Like he just hasn't been the same guy since his rookie season.
That is very true. Guys, I'm in a bit of a pickle here because...
Oh, you in a pickle? Never seen that before.
Obviously, Shamar Stewart's one of the hottest prospects right now.
Take Jalen Royals.
Nobody on that Panthers D-line had above 5.5 sacks.
Take Royals.
I don't think Shamar Stewart is a system fit for the Panthers. And that might be a hot
take. You look
take.
at Brian Burns. Brian Burns was a slimmer edge for sure.
Yeah. Guys,
but this
I'm
is
on
a
the
new
fence here.
GM regime. Is it? It's from when they drafted Burns? I think so.
It's the first season of David Canales in...
So that's got to be, right?
Second season?
I'm assuming
Second season of Canales.
Yeah.
So I'm leaning towards edge and corner because obviously they just signed J.C. Horn to the 4-year extension, and then they actually got Morig away from the Raiders on a 3-year deal. That D-line still needs some help, but they did sign Wharton and Patrick Jones. Guys, I think I got to go Will Johnson, who is still our best,
go for it,
second best corner in the class, depending on where you put Hunter. But that is a safe pick. I feel like it gives time for Johnson to develop with Horn, who has been hurt in previous seasons. So having a mentor and a vet will prove to be successful, I think, in the Panthers' eyes. Again, I would love to help out Bryce Young, but there's so many wide receivers in this class. You could probably still get one in the second round, and he would still be better than Xavier Legette.
Yeah. You're also looking at you are pairing up a rookie contract with the massive extension of J.C. Horn, which averages out to a kind of normal corner room. So I think that's a good move.
Gives you time.
Think it makes exactly. It makes a lot of sense, and you're basically hedging what you've paid Horn to make sure that corner is not your most crazy position. It's a good move.
I feel like the Panthers have had a constant twirl of corners recently. I mean, they've been bad historically, but I don't feel like they've had anyone beyond J.C. Horn, and some vets come in from 1-year deals. So having someone like Will Johnson come in and you have to play 4 years, possibility of a 5th is great because that gives Bryce Young time. Maybe Andy Dalton, depends on who's the quarterback. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but
yeah, it's a weird one.
The Panthers, you should just take a defensive player. If you're doing a mock draft for the Panthers, take somebody on the defensive line or corner especially. If you like Jihad Campbell, maybe a linebacker. They just need defensive talent because they don't have a lot of it outside of Horn. And the Morig signing. I like the Morig signing.
So I'm up with the Saints at pick 9. So PFF has them needing a running back. That's crazy. Alvin Kamara is still good at football, very good at football, and needing a wide receiver. Their receiver room is Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and now Brandon Cooks. That's startable. That's not a pick. And you take that's. I disagree with both of those. I don't think you take an offensive player here if you're the Saints, or at the very least, I don't think you take a skill position player if you're the Saints, unless you're taking Tyler Warren, which is what I'm considering doing here. Is that crazy? Before I do it, I haven't landed anywhere. Would it be crazy to take Tyler Warren? They have Foster Moreau, Jawan Johnson, and I think they just paid Jawan, unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah,
They did just pay Jawan Johnson. I think it was a 3-year, $30 million deal. And I thought it was a little odd because Moreau played really well with Derek Carr. And obviously they have that familiarity with the Raiders. But, guys, I think Kellen Moore is going to want to demand more weapons in that offense. And obviously with the uncertainty of Chris Olave is 2 games away from being back to top 10 wide receivers. But Kellen Moore, I think, will make do with Derek Carr for a season or two, and then he'll be like, all right, your time's up. So I think building the offense the way he wants is logical.
Yeah, could definitely go offensive weapon here. Defense, they need an injection of talent too, so I wouldn't mind any of that.
This is a weird pick. I feel like there's so many needs, but none of them are ultra pressing, you know?
I wouldn't mind a wide receiver. I mean, they lost MVS, right?
They did lose MVS, but they brought in Brandon Cooks to replace him. Cooks is old.
And Cooks gets hurt so much.
Right.
It's so bad.
So they brought in
He also gets hurt.
Isaac Yiadom at corner, Justin Reed at safety. Love that. That's fantastic. Between him and Matthew now, they have good safeties. Kool-Aid McKinstry, I'm going to give him time because we've proven that young corners need time. So I don't want to. I don't know if you take a corner here, but even if you do, what corner are you taking? This feels like a weird selection. And at the end of the day, I think I'm just going to look at interior offensive line. Maybe. No, I don't need. Dude, this is so odd. I don't know what to do. Screw it. I'm taking Ted.
Okay.
I'm taking Ted. Whatever. I tried to talk myself out of it and be like, I don't like him that much. Ted McMillan.
Tedero McMillan, wide receiver out of Arizona. You get a big target out there because Olave is small. Brandon Cooks is small. Rashid Shaheed is small. And they're all good players. They're all small. So you get a guy who could be that big X receiver that we talked about last episode, make some plays in a different way than those other 3 guys.
Yep. 10. Pick 10. Who's up?
That's going to be me, Chicago Bears. So Genti has been mocked here a lot. And as much as I love Genti as a player,
It'd be so fun.
It would be fun. It would be fun. I think the Bears have more pressing needs.
But
Their
you don't want to
pass
see.
rush was abysmal last year.
You don't think Ben Johnson's going to want to recreate the Jahmyr Gibbs experiment with DeAndre Swift and Ashton Genti?
I don't know. It's so hard for me to project that because he wasn't making the pick, A. But B, defensively, Lions were just in a better spot than the Bears are, I would say, especially on the defensive line. And so they solved their interior offensive line problems. I think you could take a tackle here if you wanted to. There's not a guy that's screaming out at me right now. So I want to go defensive line. So as I cue this up, let's see, we got Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon are some of the names that are on our board. And let me check our big board to see where we have those guys because I don't remember off the top of my head. So Grant and Nolan are right next to each other. Okay. So in that case, then, but I don't want to take Walter Nolan with the 10th pick now that I'm talking about this. The ideal way that this happens, honestly, is if somehow Mason Graham falls down here.
Not a chance.
I was going to say, I just don't think there's a chance that actually happens. Okay, so I actually probably like edge here more than anything. And so now after talking through that all, and thank you for listening to me just wander my way around here, I'm going to take Shamar Stewart, edge from Texas A&M.
Good pick.
I love it. It gives them a real, every good defense needs something to point to and be like, we do that really, really well. The Chiefs, for the last few years, they pointed their secondary, right? The Eagles just now, that you can point at their edge rushers in that playoff run. For the freaking Legion of Boom. They were great all around, but their secondary is what made them one of the best, a Hall of Fame. Every defense needs something to point to. Now the Bears can just point at their edge rushers and be like, they're going to kill you. We'll figure out everything else.
Yeah, I mean, and we talk about Shamar Stewart is like the guy in terms of potential in his athleticism. But guys, I keep wanting to say this because he is just so disruptive on there's stuff there that you can latch onto and go, this is actually a guy who's a good player right now. It's not all projection. He's got to put some things together in terms of, linking his feet up with his hands and his pass rush moves, pass rush plan, and then actually finishing at the quarterback when he gets there. But there's so much like just in terms of the disruption, even if it doesn't translate to some of the stats on PFF and things like that, I promise you he is a disruptive player and will be a good player.
Ryan, I believe you were on the clock with pick 11, and we probably should hurry these up, gentlemen.
Yeah, I'm also contemplating D-line here because, I mean, they didn't get a ton of push last year. But O-line, I'm looking, it was about average. So do we want to put them above average or do we want to get them a star corner because their secondary's looking iffy? They did sign Trey Brown to a 1-year, $1.7 million deal and Sirianni Neal to a 2-year deal. And then Richie Grant actually came over. So that's but I don't think that's going to get them anywhere.
I would go, well, actually, not just overall, Kyle Shanahan does not take offensive linemen high. That's just something he doesn't do. And so I feel like for the exercise, we probably shouldn't take an offensive lineman, even if I think they need one.
I think Donovan Jackson makes actually a lot of sense for them to take at this position because their biggest need is just offensive line in general.
They need a guard.
Yeah, exactly.
I would have loved Membu here, but that went a lot higher.
You just want to knock every tackle down to guard.
Well, they need a tackle too. Trent Williams is old.
Yeah, they do.
That is true.
And their other tackle is not very good. I can't remember his name now.
Well, if we're looking at our big board, the best
Their
players
other tackle
available
is
are
McKivitz right now.
Best players available are Genty, Tyler Warren, Malachi Starks.
They're not going to take Warren.
Jalen Walker.
They're not going to take Walker, I don't believe.
Yeah, dude, it's getting down this list. Mike Green, Mykel Williams. They could go Mykel Williams, but I think they go O-line. And Tyler, I know what you're saying, but I think it is time to draft a stud offensive lineman like Donovan Jackson.
Okay, before we do this, though, if we're doing this as an exercise, Donovan Jackson's not going 11.
But Tyler, he could.
But if we're trying to stay true to this exercise, and this is not me trying to say that Donovan Jackson's not a good player, anything in terms of how you value him is bad or whatever, but the 49ers are not taking him at 11.
I don't like any of the D linemen here. I don't like any of the receivers here. I don't like any of the corners here.
Well, hold that point. I'm seeing Jahdae Barron marked to the Niners a healthy amount. And it feels like he is steadily rising on people's boards to the point where it might be like, I don't want to say consensus, but PFF, if you're looking at
27 on ours.
That's low compared to consensus.
I was because I have him in the teens. I think in the next big board, he's probably going to be at 15 is where he's sitting right now.
I think he's going to be within 15 to 20 for me.
Aaron's a good player, man. I think edge, honestly, or interior defensive line, we have Kenneth Grant that's not insanely out of the range. Like, I don't know. I'm just, and if you guys want to trump this, that's fine. But again, with us trying to stick to the exercise of what these teams are going to do, I like Donovan Jackson. Donovan Jackson's not going 11.
I'm with you, Tyler. I also think that this is a weird range. When you get past, I think the Saints is the beginning of it, where we start taking players who aren't worth where we're taking them.
Yeah, and that, again, leads to the question of what kind of prototype are we drafting to the 49ers? I don't even think we talked about edge players to the 49ers. They have Bosa. Are they looking for a speed rusher and Mike Green? I don't really think so. So I think if anyone wants to trade up here, I would accept calls.
I think they just take. I think they take Barron. That's where I'm landing. I think if I'm the Niners, I just take Jahdae Barron.
All right, I will solely because of the fact that they literally don't have anyone in the secondary.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Is also Starks. I know I was saying how I'm cooling on Starks, but
yeah,
in terms of where he's at on our board, and they just lost Hufanga. So
Yeah, they did. That one hurts them, I think, more than people realize.
So I would say probably either Barron or Stark.
All right. I took Barron.
Excellent.
Yeah.
You guys are higher on him than I am, so that's why it was harder for me to like be able to do that. But on the consensus board, I think he is at like 27. So
Yeah. All right. Cowboys are on the clock. I think I'm just going to take Ashton Genty. I don't want to. I think that's what the Cowboys would do in this position. I don't know if there's. I think he is too good of a player at too big a position of need to pass up.
Ashton
pick.
Genty was.
I like it because I think Jerry Jones is going to be made fun of if he doesn't take Ashton Genty. But
It's one of those picks that you look at. Who did we take over this guy? Right. It's the okay, great. Justin Jefferson went where? We took who over Justin Jefferson? I mean, come on. I think it's that kind of pick. Genty has the potential to be that kind of player.
Yeah, and it doesn't affect him long term in the sense that they had Miles Sanders and Javonte Williams coming in free agency on 1-year deals.
Mm-hmm.
So they have no idea what's going to happen after that. And if they really are trying to capitalize on their Super Bowl window, then I think this is the obvious pick.
Yeah. We don't have to spend any more time on that. Tyler, you are up for the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, another Shanahan disciple that I think probably should take an offensive lineman, but just doesn't. And so, I would put that up to you guys if you think McDaniel would be a guy that would take, especially a guard here. I know people have mocked Tyler Booker to them. I even saw one where somebody had mocked Donovan Jackson. Membu has been a popular one throughout the class here. So offensive lineman's a possibility. Defensive lineman, they have been so hurt there. Lost Wilkins last class. Final one, I think defensive secondary. They're not great right now. Holland just left. Ramsey's getting old, that kind of thing. So do any of those positions stand out to you guys over another?
I think this is the kind of pick where you start considering guys like Walker, Green, Michael, Starks. I think it's one of those four.
My stance is I'm looking at the depth chart. They obviously run the weird 3-4, so it's a little harder for edge rushers to be drafted there unless they played in a 3-4, unless you absolutely know for a fact that you're going to be putting him in a Jalen Phillips or Bradley Chubb role. I like Malachi Starks here, and I know that might be a little early for what some people think, but they did lose Javon Holland to the Giants.
Right,
So
that does just fill a massive need for them.
Who Javon Holland is young, was one of the best safeties in the league recently. I think it just, you're filling a hole.
Yeah. I think I'm going to pick Malachi Starks, safety from Georgia. I do think that Michael can make sense here. He played in an odd front at Georgia, so he has some experience there, both in the 4 technique and then playing outside on the edge. So, but I do think it just makes sense. You lose your best safety, really good player in free agency, pick up one in the draft, try to replace him.
Yeah. I think it makes a ton of sense. Ryan.
Guys, I love where I am right now versus where I was with the 49ers, but the Colts did a lot that I loved. They signed Daniel Jones to a 1-year deal. Absolutely love that. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it costs too much. That is good. That gives Anthony Richardson the little nudge that he needs where someone hovering over his shoulders like, hey, you better play well or else you're going to lose your job. That's great. And they did exactly what I wanted and bolstered the secondary. Tre'Davious Ward came over and Cameron Bynum came over. So A++ there. And this is going to be an A++ pick because they're taking Tyler Warren. We've been talking about for months how the Colts don't have a tight end. And I think it was like Mo Alley Cox, Kyle Granson, Jelani Woods, I think, was in there still. So it's kind of just been a constant rotation of bad. And this immediately fixed it. I don't want to see Tyler Warren can't get separation. Boo-hoo. He will rip the ball out of your hands if you're that close to him.
Also, on that note, I watched more Tyler Warren today. He can separate. So I have zero clue what people are talking about. Like, he makes contested catches, but he also separates. And this is with this class. Like, I saw a guy, he was a fantasy football guy. So, But
We are the fantasy football guys.
But he literally in a tweet, he was like, "Oh, not me having Jack Besh having a higher film grade than Teteroa McMillan." And I was like, "Oh, not you saying you're an idiot on Twitter. Like, what are we doing? People are just obsessed with watching TikTok routes and looking at guys be like, "Oh, he got open and separated by 4 yards." That's just not the only way you can win. Also, again, you can be open by a yard, and that's good enough, especially for the NFL anyway. That's just something that's really made me frustrated with this class specifically because people are knocking Tet for it. People are knocking Tyler Warren for it. And it doesn't make sense to me.
It happens every class, but
Tyler,
yes.
Tyler Warren is your favorite tight end's favorite tight end in this class. Just take him. I don't want to say he's a can't miss because that's a silly word to use because, man, you guys are in sync right now. What the heck? In unison, muted your mics, took a swig of water. I was fully just forgot what I was saying.
Body Armor, sponsor us.
There we go.
Hey,
Atlanta Falcons at 15.
Yeah, we will sell our souls if you give us free stuff. The Atlanta Falcons, they desperately need 2 positions, wide receiver and edge rusher. I don't like any of the wide receivers here. It's too early for any of them. I'm just going to take an edge rusher. So the question becomes which one, right? We are in range of Pierce, Williams, Green, I think that, and Jalen Walker. So Pierce, Green, Williams, Jalen Walker are the 4 that I'm discussing. I'm leaning. Atlanta likes to keep Georgia in-house, so I'm leaning Walker or Williams.
Right. I think Williams probably A for the potential, but B, we've talked about it before, the Green and the Pierce, just character red flags that seem to be popping up from teams. I think is going to push them down the board a little bit. And I like Walker, but
He's a weird position.
And Atlanta just needs a guy who just can get to the passer.
Yeah.
They haven't had that. They don't need a tweener. They just need a guy who can pressure the quarterback.
Yeah, I took Williams. Micah Williams out of Georgia. I feel like it's straightforward. And when you can take straightforward, you do it.
Absolutely.
And I say all that for me as the Arizona Cardinals. I'm going to make this nice and simple. I am going to take Jalen Walker, linebacker out of Georgia. There are some question marks, but they desperately need help at the linebacker position. And Jonathan Gannon loves guys that are that tweener kind of in between positions. That's why it's called a tweener. So I think it's a good fit for him. Can be fun coming off the edge and playing some linebacker and just help him in a ton of spots because that defense doesn't have a ton of talent right now.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And you, in one offseason with Sweat and Walker, have revitalized your defensive line.
Guys, I'm in another pickle here.
Whatever you do, don't take an offensive player. Because I've seen people mock Colston Loveland here. It makes me so frustrated. You don't need more weapons, actually, Cincinnati. You need to let people not score points on you.
Yeah.
You take a guy like Green or Pierce and just have Trey Hendrickson in insurance.
That's what I'm thinking here because I think that's hard. I want to say Hendrickson does sit out because it's just bad business, guys. They're doing bad business, and they made T. Higgins wait. Granted, he got paid probably a little bit more than he should have, but Jamar Chase making him number 1 player in all of the NFL. I think they're going to overpay for Hendrickson, or they won't pay him at all. It is the two sides. It won't be a fair deal by any means. I think Mike Green is the pick here. I would love to see an offensive lineman as well, and I think that's the only other option you could do if you were the Bengals. I think they just signed Gesicki to a longer deal, and they have Eric Hall.
He played well for them last season. I don't want to knock Gesicki. I like him.
And I like Eric Hall, who is a tight end out of Iowa, and we know how those Iowa boys have been performing. So I'm not mad with this pick here, but it would be really interesting to see if the Hendrickson stuff shakes out before the draft. And if it does, this pick could change.
Yes.
But for now, Mike Green.
So that means I'm up with Seattle. We have talked about this for months about what Seattle needs, who makes sense for them. Donovan Jackson. I mean, we've talked about it. We said that he's the perfect guy for this offense, and they are like completely gutting everything. They could use a receiver. They have guys like Luther Burden or not Luther Burden. They have guys like JSN and completely with Cooper Kupp on this team, and so you could use
Jake Bobo.
And Jake Bobo. Apologies. You could use a speedy threat like Luther Burden. I think he makes sense for the compared to those guys, and it's filling out the room correctly. But it's too early for him. Doesn't make sense to draft a running back. You could use edge help here, but take the guy who fits like a puzzle piece and take Jackson.
Love it, dude.
So funny. He's not on the first page for PFF in our draft right now, so I had to scroll down so far and go to the second page.
I had to search for his name.
Yeah, disrespect for our boy Donovan Jackson there. I ended up with the Tampa Bay Bucks, so that works out pretty well for me as a Bucks fan.
Well for you.
I really think this draft has fallen pretty well for them. I'm going to go ahead and take Jihad Campbell, linebacker out of Alabama. Fits really well. Position of need, a guy that I think is a top 20 player in this class, really talented, has only scratched the surface of his potential, only played 1 year as an off-the-ball linebacker, started out as edge. Just really traitsy, lanky guy at 6'4", can cover a lot of ground. I think as soon as he refines some of the play rec stuff and just gets more used to playing off-ball linebacker as a whole position, he will be a very good player.
It makes another pick that fits like a glove. Just make the pick, call it a day. I love it.
All right, boys. Denver Broncos. And I'm at another coin flip because Amari Hampton's on the board, Burden and Golden and Egbuka.
And four. And Colston Loveland.
Eh.
Not a Loveland guy, eh?
I'm a Loveland guy, but we have the perfect scenario for Colston Loveland.
Yeah, I mean, the perfect scenario is 2 picks later, legitimately.
Yes.
Oh, well, we might talk about that then, but go ahead.
It's your pick, Ty, so that'd be fun.
Yeah.
All right. I'm looking at Cortland Sutton, and I think he's like 29. Probably need to start thinking about replacing him. And the only guy that I would say would be Golden. Vele is a role player.
Marvin Mims, good player.
Role player.
But
Troy Franklin plays the exact same position.
Troy Franklin is a bad player.
Agreed.
Yes. I'm glad we could all agree on something tonight. If you take anything away, we agree that Troy Franklin is a bad player.
He is Bo Nix's emotional support player. That is why he was taken. They brought in a friend. That's what's happening. He's his golden retriever to Bo Nix's cheetah.
You know me how much I like Golden. So out of all those guys, Golden's my favorite.
See,
that would be my 2 cents.
I like Burden. I would pick Burden or Hampton here. I think I'd be hard-pressed not to take Hampton.
Okay, I will decide if you guys can help me pick a position because running back is also a position of need. Do we think that they have a better chance of getting a better running back in round 2?
Yes.
Or a better wide receiver in round 2?
Also, yes. I think these are the 2 best positions to draft for in round 2.
I think you can get a better running back in round 2.
So go wide receiver here.
So I would go receiver. Yeah.
Okay.
I think, Tyler, you might be right that you might be able to get the better running back in round 2. I think that's the correct answer. I still think Hampton is good enough to warrant just taking outright.
Yeah, I have seen that people think that the gap between Hampton and Genty is not insanely big.
I've heard whispers of Hampton RB1, which is, I got to be honest, blasphemy. But people say it.
What's going to help Bo Nix the most? Having a slot guy, having a wide receiver 2, or having a starting running back?
Probably a wide receiver. I think the correct answer is a safety blanket tight end. That might help Bo Nix the most, being the quarterback that he is.
Guys, why is my job the hardest tonight?
Because
this did not go as smoothly as their second draft.
Take Hampton.
They have a glut of options. Like, they are in a fantastic position right now in the draft. I'm not saying their team is in a good position, but they've done well in the offseason, and now you have to cap it off.
Yeah, I like the offensive line as is. Like, that can be fine. The defense was phenomenal. the only option I could do here is, or I could 180 and do Egbuka. I'm kidding.
Not, it, I
Omari and
wouldn't
Hampton.
hate it.
Take Hampton.
I like Omari and Hampton a lot. I think I was a little bit higher than you guys on my personal rankings, but he is 26 on our big board, so that's not bad value. But personally, I think the wide receiver class is also phenomenal. So you
Ryan,
can still get a great one in round 2.
Brian, you had him 27. Tyler had him 28. I had him 23.
Okay, so we were all right in the same range then.
We're very similar on Hampton. We're high on him. Not like we're higher than consensus, but like we like him as a player. All right.
This allows the Steelers to get a different wide receiver.
It does. So I want to talk to you guys about the Steelers wide receiver room and what we think will happen. They have DK Metcalf now for the next 4 years. George Pickens, do they extend him and bring him back even with his issues on the field, off the field? Or do they let him walk or try and trade for him? What do we think is going to happen with Pickens before we move on? Because I think they're going to get Rodgers and draft a rookie next year.
I think they ride it out and try to see if they can salvage it. But I don't know, because they always get rid of those guys. Eventually, they got rid of Antonio Brown. Eventually, got rid of Deontay Johnson. But it does feel like they stick with them for a while.
Do we think that... I feel like Pickens and Metcalf are so redundant. You need somebody opposite what they do, right? You need somebody opposite. You don't need a field stretcher. You don't need somebody who is going to run fast, catch ball, which I think rules out Golden as good as he is. I think the other 2 receivers left at this position are Burden and Ibuka.
Calvin Austin is okay.
I agree, but I don't think he's good enough to warrant
not taking
one of these 2. I really like Burden. I'm high on him. His skill set feels so niche, though. And I'm wondering does that niche fit what the Steelers need? Tyler, I know you're not the biggest Burden fan. What are you thinking?
I wouldn't mind it. I don't think that's too high based on his value. I wonder if defense, if you are feeling that at all, a lot of their defensive players are on the older side. So I don't know if that gets into your head at all. But as far as receiver,
Not
I think I like Golden the most. If you took any of the 3 receivers, though, I would not be against it.
Okay. Ryan, I'm leaning Ibuka. Where are your thoughts?
I would love to see a running back, but I don't like one here. So if Hampton fell here, I think Hampton would be the move. But where it stands now, I think Burden would be the pick, because I feel like Pickens and Egbuka do very similar roles in the offense in which they're gadget guys that can be at the catch point. So, yes, they would play different positions, but in the sense that I think they need a pure slot guy. And if you're saying Calvin Austin's not that guy, then I would pick Burden. But again, they could do a variety of things here. Heck, you could replace, get a defensive lineman. Cam Hayward's getting up there. So it's just a matter of what do the team needs, who's the quarterback. It's not a fun position. And if I was anyone else in this draft class, like the Commanders, would you consider trading down?
I would have. I just made the pick.
Oh, buddy.
Sorry. I was going to get right into it as soon as you finished your monologue. I took Ibuka. I think Ibuka is not only one of the best 2 receivers left in this class. I have him and Burden above Golden. I do think that he might be the veteran that they need. I think he could, not the veteran, but he could be like the calming, soothing presence that they need. I could be wrong. He could be not that kind of guy, but he feels like all reports say he's a leader of men, locker room type player, and I think the Steelers could very much use one of those.
I'm up here now with the Los Angeles Chargers. They need the biggest 2 needs. Well, 3. They have 3 needs in my eyes. Offensive skill weapon. I still am not super satisfied with Najee Harris, so I think any of the running back, tight end, receiver, they need all of that. And then both interior defensive line and interior offensive line. while their tackles are really, really good, their guards and centers are not. And so that's something that they need to address. What am I going to go with here? I do think it makes too much sense to not put Colson Loveland here, tight end out of Michigan. He played for Jim Harbaugh. He is able to run really good routes. He moves so well. He can separate at the tight end position against both linebackers, safeties, and corners. He did it all at Michigan against really good competition and with a really bad offense around him. And so love this pick here. Think it makes sense, not only with how he links with Harbaugh, but it fills a need. They need pass catchers that actually have juice. Loveland in this tight end class is up there with Warren in terms of the juice he could bring.
I think it's perfect. It makes too much sense. And we are like over an hour into this show at this point. So we're going to move on. Ryan, you have the Packers. Have you been able to do your research in the 2 seconds you had?
I have. And I like their D tackles. And I'm going to say that on air. Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt, and Carl Brooks can get it done. We drafted Walter Nolan in our last mock draft to the Packers, I believe. And I'm not going to do that here. As much as I would love Walter Nolan on the Packers, I can't. And I want you guys to rank the 5 wide receivers in order: Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks, and Mecole Hardman, and tell me if I should draft a wide receiver. This is brain rot.
Well, funnily enough, without ranking them, actually, Golden's left. Never mind. Golden would be better. Golden would be better than any of those guys.
Here.
Yeah.
I think Burden would be better than 5 out of the 6. The issue is he's so redundant with Reed. With Reed being his... Yeah. You don't take Burden here even if they have him really high on their board. It's not... No.
The only other options are James Pierce or Benjamin Morrison.
I was going to say, pick your corner. There's Benjamin Morrison. We also have, actually, we didn't end up with any of the corners close. Rebel is the next closest, and Amos. I like Morrison a lot.
Yeah, I'm completely fine taking Morrison here because we don't, again, know how the Jair Alexander step's going to work out.
Yeah.
But they did go get Nate Hobbs in free agency, 4-year, $48 million deal. So they expect Nate Hobbs to be a boundary corner. He'll probably play nickel, but...
I wouldn't. I like the Morrison pick, honestly. If you don't like Pierce to be an edge guy, they need pass defense as a need.
As a whole,
so
yeah.
Whether you go edge or a corner, I like either.
I'm so glad we are on the same page. Benjamin Morrison to the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I made a video on this, guys. I have no idea why he's ranked as low as he is for some people.
I don't either. It doesn't make sense to me.
Just so fluid. His tape is so clean. He beats guys to the spot all the time, is really good in press. People say he has tight hips. I just disagree. I don't see that on film when I watch him. And so love the competition he went up against as well. Notre Dame plays a really hard schedule every year. He checks so many boxes for me. I think he should be a first-round corner, no doubt.
Moving on, the Minnesota Vikings are up at 24. That's my selection. The big question mark here is, what do you do? Which is the question mark at every pick. It's a joke. So I'm going to, for a second here, look back. Is there anybody who we think needs a wide receiver desperately? Maybe the Bills, or I think the Bills might make a lot of sense. So I'm going to see if they want to hop the Texans and get Golden or Burden. Who has the Bills? Do I have the Bills? I have the Bills. I can't do that. That's illegal.
Yeah. Plus, I think, I don't know, they have just been completely fine with not investing in the wide receiver position and just trusting Josh Allen.
I hate that. If I am the Minnesota Vikings, your options really are they just traded for Jordan Mason and they still have Aaron Jones. So running back is kind of out of the question. I think that what you need to do here is go defensive line.
Agree.
Is it interior or exterior is the question. I think there's a lot of guys left, in all honesty. Best player available on our board on the defensive line would be Pierce, and then Grant, and then Nolan. This feels
back to back.
Yeah, in 1920 and 21. And then there's a big old drop-off of guys we've already taken, and then it would be Nick Scorton from A&M. I think it has to be one of Nolan, Pierce, or Grant.
Totally agree. They just need defensive talent because Brian Flores is a wizard and he draws up a lot of cool stuff and runs a really fun defense. But at some point, when you play a quarterback that is mentally there and can figure it out, like a Stafford, you need the actual talent to still make plays. They don't have a lot of that right now. So I love going defense. I think Nolan is probably their type as an aggressive gap shooting kind of defensive lineman. Could use Kenneth Grant in the middle. I'm just higher on Nolan than I am Grant, and then James Pierce, as long as you're okay with the character issues. I think getting some pass rush juice there would be great. Plus he can drop into coverage, which Flores loves.
I think I'm gonna end up taking Pierce. They took Dallas Turner in last year's class, and now you have two young edge rushers who, if they both pan out, alongside your already very clearly has panned out Daniil Hunter. Yeah,
I got Jonathan Grenard. They swapped.
Right. That messes with my head.
It's trippy.
It's trippy. So I think if you can get one of Dallas Turner or James Pierce Jr. to pan out, I think maybe both, and you have Grenard, that's a fantastic combo. So I'm going to take Pierce Jr. I also feel like he's a very Flores-y type player with his speed, ability, and just how athletic he is.
And I'm up with the Houston Texans at 25 here. They have needs, according to PFF, wide receiver and offensive line. Here's the deal, though. Offensive line right now, greater need than wide receiver. And so as much as I love Matthew Golden, and I
think
really
they did just sign 2 offensive linemen like in the past 2 days.
And they both are really bad. And so
yeah.
Tyler did his research and he was ready for that.
No, well, it's so funny because it literally, this is that shout out Nate Tice. Kenyon Green was the worst, I think it was. It was either worst or third worst in pass block win rate. Pressure rate allowed.
Hey, go Birds, dude. Come on.
The guy that they signed is the second worst. And so they actually somehow downgraded, at least by that stat. So because of that, I am going to take Josh Simmons. This fell really good for the Texans. He's able to play tackle, fill in for that Laramie Tunsil spot. They, as much as if they go receiver and the board falls a different way to where there's not guys there, totally understand taking somebody like a Golden, Egbuka, Burden, whoever, because Diggs is gone, Tank Dell's injury prone. But man, that line of scrimmage is bad, and I need CJ Stroud to be able to play for years to come.
I feel like we haven't talked about Simmons in weeks on this podcast, but he's still quietly our tackle 2 or 3 behind Membo. I don't know. Armand. The Los Angeles Rams are on the clock at 26, and I think this is a fun selection for them. They have options here.
I do. The problem is I don't know what their plan for Tutu Atwell is. They did sign him to a 1-year, $10 million deal, so I guess it's going to be more of a prove-it deal. But Tutu Atwell is purely slot guy, so I was maybe looking at Luther Burden there. But
it's just a Tutu replacement?
Yeah. Yeah, because they're going to need a 4th guy to rotate in there, and I think it could be Winnington, but I don't know. Obviously, I think they might want to tackle to be behind Havenstein because he's getting up there. Guys, this is hard. We could go secondary. We could go linebacker.
Do you consider tight end? Taking a guy like Elijah Arroyo or Mason Taylor?
Not here. They have Higbee and Parkinson.
Plus, I just say it's too high for those 2 guys.
I agree. I was throwing options at the wall.
Yeah, this is a tough one, man. I think wide receiver.
I would love a linebacker here, but there are none available.
Right. And then, I mean, honestly, DBs. We are relatively higher on Trey Amos. I think he's worthy of a first-round corner pick, and he landed in the 30s in our big board. Right.
I feel like if Campbell was 37, on the board, this would have been a good Campbell spot.
Would have definitely been a good Campbell spot. Personally, I had Trey Harris in the low 30s, so I would not say this is a huge reach if you wanted to go DB.
So last time we did this board, I had the Rams and I took Jackson Dart. And after what happened with Matt Stafford, who got a restructured contract, I feel like Dart still makes sense here as a concept, right? As a player, Dart might not be the greatest pick here, but the idea of we're going to take Dart, we're going to let him sit for 2 years, and he's going to get the Jordan Love treatment. Is that still up in the air? I guess.
It's hard. The Rams are one of the more complete teams in the league beyond their linebackers. I'm leaning corner, Tyler. I agree with you. I'm seeing Darius Williams, Akella Witherspoon's in there.
The other
Quentin
thing,
Lake, Kobe Durant.
not to cut you off, but even with some of the influx of talent they've had on the interior defensive line, they're not very big there, and we do have Kenneth Grant here.
I mean, at
They
this point,
just signed Puna Ford, though.
but also at this point, just
$30 million.
build on your strengths. Draft a freaking edge rusher. See what happens.
Yeah.
Is there any? Do we think the Bills here are like worried that the Ravens take a receiver from them and are debating trading up? Because I think the Bills could. I have the Bills, and I'm debating: do they slide into go from 30 to 26 to try and beat the Ravens and get their pick of receiver?
I don't know if there's anyone here worth trading up for beyond the D tackles and maybe the wide receivers.
I also think that was my thought as well. That's where I landed. It's also there's two of Golden and Burden. If one of them leaves, then the Bills try and trade up, in my opinion.
Well, as much as we say Bills wide receiver, like they took Keon Coleman last year, they signed Josh Palmer to a deal. They still have Khalil Shakir. So as much as much as it's not like they have this bona fide number one receiver, they've invested in it a lot.
Yeah, that's sad though. I always like pairing up Josh Allen with fun receivers.
I might do something trippy. Give me a second.
We spend so much time on Ryan's picks.
Dude, because mine are the hardest today.
I mean, offensive line, Gray Zabel can play any position on the offensive line. Kelvin Banks is pretty close.
I was thinking about maybe doing a mulligan and moving Washington up for a D tackle, but they have Payne and Kinlaw and Newton. So, guys, my picks are terrible.
I would go either Kenneth Grant or just like interior defensive tackle, Banks or Zabel, or like corner if you wanted to get real weird.
I don't think you have to get. It's not that real weird. You could just take Amos. He's a good player.
I agree. Amos would be the safe pick. Beyond that, if I were to pick another guy, it would probably be Zabel. So we'll do Trey Amos. He's not bad. Like, guys, we talked about him as being a first-round corner, possibly. But on our big board, where do we have him? 37. So not a tremendous reach, but he definitely has the talent to be out there, and it would help shore up the secondary a little bit. I don't know if he would start immediately either, but training camp would be a great answer for that.
I'm the Ravens. I'm going to take Gray Zabel out of NDSU, a tackle that we could easily slide down to guard and keep it trucking.
Can I ask, why did you not think about the possibility of D tackle here? Because I'm pretty sure who was it that just retired?
Was it for the
Ravens?
Because they signed Matabike to a big deal.
Mm-hmm. I just don't think they have the biggest need at interior D line.
Michael Pierce.
Right. Yeah, that's not going to move me.
Okay. I was just asking. I remember I saw that headline and be like, oh, they might have a need there.
I think that their biggest need is guard, and I think that Zabel is available. So is Banks, but I think Zabel's my favorite tackle guard prospect left. So that's where I'm landing. Lions.
Yep, Detroit Lions is going to be my pick. It's really tough. They honestly don't have a ton of spots just that they're bad at. It's a lot of there's good, but you could build. And I think for that reason, I'm going to go interior defensive line. Because guys like Walter Nolan, Kenneth Grant, Derek Harmon have fallen. And so it fits. But also DJ Reader's a little old. Aleem McNeil is not this overwhelming type of player. So I am going to go – I like Walter Nolan a little more. So I'm going to go Walter Nolan, defensive tackle from Ole Miss. Oozing with potential, was the number one recruit in his class. Played really well for Texas A&M and then transferring to Ole Miss. Played well there. Just got to get him locked in. But when he does, man, he is so disruptive, shooting gaps, really good pass rusher, really, really good player overall.
I think it makes sense. I'd be hard pressed not to pick Grant here if I were in your shoes, Ty, purely to get that Michigan player in. I think that adds a lot, right? You're getting a Michigan guy who gets to stay home. It really obviously worked out with Hutchinson, and you're adding like they played together at Michigan, and so I think that adds something. And I just like Grant more than Nolan.
All right, boys. Washington Commanders.
And Ryan, you're on the clock for this one, by the way. You got 2 seconds. Make your pick.
Okay. I'm leaning edge, but I would love another wide receiver since Golden and Burden have now fallen to me. So guys, why do I have the tough choices? Like I could go Scorton here.
I had these picks last time. I didn't spend this much time complaining.
I feel like they were easier last time.
It's got to be either. I mean,
it's Scorton or Luther Burden.
Why can't it be a corner?
I don't like any of the corners.
That's a huge
here.
reach. I mean, I know I was talking about how Debo's going to be washed. They just traded for Debo. Burden is not a Debo copy, but he does a lot of the same things.
Okay, so would you take Golden and pair him with McLaurin?
I would take a Jonathan Allen replacement.
All right, fine. Guys, my picks have been terrible tonight. I've been in some really bad positions. All right, Kenneth Grant. I'm not mad. I was talking about...
Is that your selection?
Yeah. Kenneth Grant to the Washington Commanders. I'm not mad at this because I was even thinking about trading up for a D tackle. But, guys, there's so many things the Commanders could do. But look at the board. It's so hard right now, and there's so many guys that have fallen, but you want to pull the trigger on Luther Burden and Kelvin Banks and Matthew Golden, but it's really hard not to because the Commanders specifically have a few holes that they still need to fill, like the secondary, but there's not a secondary player I would take here.
Yeah, I think that the board fell rough for the Commanders when it comes to corners and guards. They could take Booker. That feels like a reach.
The only one I might think of is Nick Emenwari.
I don't see it. The Bills are on the clock, and I'm getting an edge rusher, right? I don't like the Joey Bosa move. If I'm not feeling uber confident in the Joey Bosa move, I don't think it's enough. And I want a rotation. Good defensive lines have rotations that they can go to. So it's between Ezuraku and Scorton for me. Where do you guys land? PFF has Ezuraku 22 and Scorton 34. We have Scorton above Ezuraku, and I think I have him at 33 and 38. Where do you guys land between the two of them, and how well they fit the Bills?
Personally, I like Scorton better. I'll show my cards. I was actually going to draft Scorton to the Eagles.
Yeah, and I think he matches what they like more. They like these bigger body edges. Bosa is that. Rousseau is that. Epinesa is that. More than Ezraku being shorter, leaner, twitchy guy. I feel like their type is more Scorton than it is Ezraku.
That's all I needed. Scorton to this. We have him higher anyways. I was looking for an excuse to take him. Nick Scorton, A&M to the Buffalo Bills. I feel like that might really work out for them, and it's a pick I'd be really happy with on draft day.
All right, so I got the Kansas City Chiefs here. Let me guess where I'm going to go here. It's going to be offensive line. So,
whoa. Crazy.
Yeah, they now could take any offensive line position, whereas I think it was tackle exclusive before this. They lost Joe Thuney. They traded him away. And so do think you could go guard here. I know people are talking about kicking Sua Matia down to guard. It just, like, maybe for sure that might work out, but it's up in the air. So I'm going to go the highest guy that we have left at the offensive line position, period. That's Kelvin Banks Jr. Plus, you get the added bonus. I think he does kick down to guard in the league, but obviously played tackle at Texas, so a little bit of positional flexibility there.
I love it. I think it makes the most sense. It's a take your medicine kind of pick. Ryan, for our last pick in our mock draft, you are on the clock with your Philadelphia Eagles. Tyler, are you all right, brother? You've been coughing up a storm today.
Allergies, man. We got allergies wrecking me, but we're good.
All right, good. Get better. Ryan, I have a request.
I will listen to your request because I'm looking at two players.
Okay.
And those two players are.
Wait, don't say it. Don't say it. Let me make my request first.
Is it a Georgia player?
No.
Okay, good.
Okay. Please take Matthew Golden.
Over Burden?
Yes, because I love Luther Burden.
All right.
I do. But I think Golden paired with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown makes so much sense.
Okay, but hear me out. Safety.
That's Nick Emenwari. Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
I would take safety over Matthew Golden here.
I think
For positional need alone.
as Iraku was also available, he actually doesn't feel Eaglesy. I think you just leave him off because he's not SEC, and Eagles love their SEC defenders. So I think safety is interesting for Emenwari.
I think
Because at the
Golden
end
is a
of the-
way better player, but
I'm with it.
I
also
agree. But
Eagles.
Tristan McCollum's currently the starter.
Well, is he? Yeah, I guess. Well, no, technically, but Sidney Brown's going to be competing for that job, and I think hopefully. But I think if you're drafting a safety, you are putting him in a room to compete with other guys, and if you're drafting a receiver, you're drafting a guy to automatically be wide receiver 3 alongside AJ Brown, Devonta Smith.
Aaron, I like the wide receiver class in round 2, so I think I need to go safety here.
can I interest you in Andrew Makuba?
Not right now.
Dude, I like him better than Emenwari for sure. We'll get into that
Yikes.
at some point, but yeah,
I like
Makuba
Emenwari
is
more.
amazing.
Emenwari to the Philadelphia Eagles.
I don't hate it. All right, that is the end of this mock draft.
Guys, that's insane. It is so different from our previous mock draft.
This is our final mock draft. Mock draft 3.0 was on the left-hand side. So left-hand side, you're seeing mock draft 3.0. With the new one, you can see Nick Emenwari at 32. That's our most latest pick. Mock draft 2.0 is there on the right. That is what we did post-combine, I believe. Yeah, we did that post-combine. You see Shamar Stewart going to the Cowboys at 12. Guys, the differences are outlandish. I was trying to keep you both from discussing it and save it for while we were on air. But it's been Ryan, just go off, brother. What are your thoughts?
Well, like I was saying, I think it felt as though every single pick that I had, I was like, can someone trade up? Like, can someone take my spot? I don't like where I am. So I'm really curious if the board does fall something like this, that some of those teams might trade up into the end of the first round and give up their second rounder. Guys, this mock draft was much harder and did not go as smoothly as our second one.
Our second one, we all walked away feeling like we watched a fantastic movie. This one, not the same case.
Definitely some risers and fallers. I mean, Kenneth Grant dropped 16 picks.
Mm-hmm.
Egbuka did not get drafted in the first round, it looks like.
In the 2.0, you're right.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So Egbuka moved
on
up.
the left. So if you're looking at this, there's a few guys that just did not get taken in mock draft 3.0. If you're looking at 21 to Pittsburgh, we took 21, the Colts and the Pittsburgh Steelers traded in our last one. We had no trades in this one, which we could have done. We just didn't. So the Steelers stayed at 21, took Egbuka, instead of the Colts trading back and taking Revel, where the Steelers did not get McMillan at 14. So that's kind of nuts. Jackson Dart did not get drafted to the Rams. Luther Burden did not go to the Commanders. He fell to round 2. Jalen Royals, thankfully, did not get taken at 30 to the Titans. He fell to round 2. Princely Uman Mielen did not get taken by the Eagles. I still think that's a good pick and an Eagles pick. We could have, I feel like that wasn't one we discussed. But there are some of these that I think are very similar. Jahdae Barron rose 13 picks. Colson Loveland and Mike Green stayed exactly where they are. Donovan Jackson, I think, got taken where he should be taken at 18. Jihad Campbell flew into this first round to go at 19 to the Bucs after not being discussed in our last mock. This is a very, very different board after the combine and free agency and just a month of draft stuff.
It's tougher teams fill some of their needs in free agency, so there's not these glaring spots where they have just no one. For the most part, there are still teams that didn't do great in free agency, but a lot of those needs get filled.
Yeah, I feel like this is a mock draft. I might wake up in the morning and be like, dang, probably shouldn't have taken him, but no one's calling my phone, so I have to use the pick. So it's very different, but I'm not mad really at any pick in particular. So this could be a very realistic draft board.
I'll tell you what I'm mad at. I have zero clue how Matthew Golden fell out of the first round.
I agree, but
That's crazy.
Where would you have taken him?
I mean, I would have taken him if we're going wide receiver instead of Egbuka to Pittsburgh. I think he definitely could have gone 20 to the Broncos.
25 to the Texans, maybe?
Yeah, if you don't want to go offensive line there.
I stand by the
Ravens.
I stand by the
need some
Ibuka
guy.
pick.
I just think Golden's just a way better player. And so
I disagree.
I wouldn't have been mad taking him at 29 or 32.
I think
but those teams had greater needs than wide receiver.
I think the Cardinals could even take him at 16. I know they took Marvin Harrison, but in terms of the wide receivers outside of that, I'm not sold on any of those guys.
They needed the defensive help. I think the Cardinals made the right selection.
Yeah.
Again, I was contemplating taking him at 20 as well. So that just went into the conversation of what can we have in round 2 and round 3, and wide receivers were abundant.
Yeah. Honestly, and even he could have probably gone 12 to the Cowboys if you don't take Genty there. If you'd rather get a wide receiver 2, think that could have been a spot for him as well.
I think that's Golden the highest he goes.
As high as 12?
Yes.
For me, I don't take him any higher than 20 to the Broncos.
I don't see how. Like, he's such a good player in terms of his ability to get open when he's in the contested catch situations. He wins at such a high rate. Very nuanced route runner, can easily, especially if he's on the Cowboys and only has to be a wide receiver 2 to CeeDee Lamb. Dude, he would feast. That would be awesome for him.
That's fair. Tyler is pushing and struggling through allergies right now, so we're going to give him a rest. Let me know what you think of mock draft number 1 and 2 in the comments in Spotify and in YouTube, and just tweet at us. We will take all your criticism, especially if it's directed at Ryan. That's a much better way to do this.
True story.
Thank you all for listening or watching. Have a great day. Mind the gap on your way out.